More now on the latest in the Benghazi investigation. I want to bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, who is also an Air Force major who flew missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. Congressman, it's good to see you, sir.
Great, thank you. Great to be here.
One issue that came up in the week's hearings on Wednesday, whether the Defense Department could have gone into Benghazi after there was word of an attack. Former Secretary of Defense Bob Gates, he talked about that on Face the Nation this morning. Take a listen.
I think my decisions would have been just as theirs were. We don't have a ready force standing by in the Middle East, despite all the turmoil that's going on, with planes on strip alert, troops ready to deploy at a moment's notice.
This is a former defense secretary. Congressman, do you think that enough was done to save lives in Benghazi?
No, there's 2 points here. Number one, this was the anniversary of 9/11, and Libya was one of the hottest spots in the world. There should have been forces on standby. There should have been forces ready to respond to anything that would come up. Secondly, on top of that, you had the first attack, and then you had a 7-hour lull between that and the second attack, which ended up killing more Americans. I don't know why, after the first attack and the evidence that, look, this is a hot area, there's some stuff going on, whatever it is, fog of war, we'll see. But we need to alert every asset, whether it's F-16s out of Aviano, Italy, whether it's tankers out of England or out of Turkey, to get everything in line to respond. And they didn't know that the next attack was 7 hours later. It could have been 8 hours. It could have been 10 hours. But yet these forces were not alerted to be brought in to save Americans.
On Meet the Press this morning, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein, she admitted that it was fair to criticize the security in Benghazi before the attack. She agrees with you. Take a listen to what she said.
You could say the security was inadequate. It was. This was not a consulate or an embassy, therefore it did not have Marines. You can question whether it should have been there in the first place. But I don't think you can question that there was malevolence on the part of the President, on the part of the Secretary of State, or anyone else.
If most, including yourself, acknowledge that security was inadequate, who's really at fault then?
Well, look, the Secretary of State and the State Department really can determine what level of security they need. They can take from other areas that may be a lot more secure in Europe, for instance, and put some of that money to Libya. But the fact is we had an attack. I'm not blaming the President for the attack in Libya. My concern is, why didn't we respond quickly after that? As a military pilot, the first thing I was told in survival training, which is like the worst training you can go through, but the first thing I was told is, have heart, because your country will move heaven and earth to come and get you. And in this case, it didn't appear that that happened. So that's really the big concern, is why didn't we react in time? And then, of course, there's the question with the talking points later, and why did Susan Rice go on television and say this absolutely wasn't a terrorist attack?
Let me stop you there, because your first point, I think a lot of folks can get behind. The first part of what you just said makes sense, to point out how inadequate the security Why is that second part so important? Why the revision of the talking points? Why is that such an important piece of this?
To me, the huge issue is not necessarily the revision of the talking points. It's the fact that at the end of the day, the administration, for whatever reason, I don't know what the answer is, for whatever reason, the administration was very set on not saying that this was a terrorist attack. In fact, Hillary Clinton, in a closed-door meeting with a bunch of congressmen that I was part of, she basically yelled at a member of Congress who suggested that this might actually be a terrorist attack. So my question is, I just want answers. Why is this something that we couldn't say that this was a terrorist attack? I think if the president would have come out the day it happened and said, this was a terror attack and we're going to go after those people that did this to our ambassador, he probably would have gained 3 points in the poll. But for some reason he didn't, and we need to know why. You don't think we'd
be talking about it now? I want to talk to you about the other part of this story, the fact that some folks seem to be politicizing parts of it. The NRCC emailed a fundraising note 2 days ago. You're probably familiar with it. It's attached to the tragedy in Benghazi. Why politicize something like this? Why would the NRCC try and use this as an opportunity to raise a few bucks?
Well, I can't speak for the NRCC, just like I can't speak for Democrats on the other side when President Bush was in office. The thing I'll say is, from where I'm concerned as a member of Congress, is just to get answers to what happened, to get answers and hopefully let this whole thing finally settle out. But again, as we keep prying and trying to find things out, it appears that there was information withheld that Congress has a right to know. And I'm not trying to politicize, I'm just trying to get answers for the American people. That's my job.
Congressman Kinzinger, we'll leave it right there, sir. Thank you for your time on this Sunday.
It was great to be here. Thank you.
With more now on Benghazi.